Who's he?
You're a juicy part.
60 missions in Korea.
I flew 52 missions in Korea.
I flew 52 missions in Korea. How's that?
What?
A million things. I wish I had more time, but I love talking about the editing process because that's where it all comes together. So for this film, what was it like in the editing room? Did you have to make any radical changes? Like, talk a little bit about how, the complexities of editing this one.
Historically, both in movies and on the shows, I overshoot things. I've never had to do pickups, but I've always started with too much in the edit room. So I start with more than I need. And then it becomes about carving it down and subtraction, really, in terms of, obviously options. But we had 30, 40 minutes that's obviously not in the film, that was in the script that we shot. And, my gut is always that the audience, you can subtract that stuff away, and maybe it comes from TV where we have to, had to get stuff down to 42 and something and change. And the audience can feel that it was there, even though it's not there on the screen anymore. And they feel that narrative connectiveness, even though you can't leave the scene in. But test audiences were really helpful in terms of tonally, like where we should have more comedy. There was a lot more at the top where we carved out stuff. And then just throughout, there was, probably an extra 30, 40 minutes of stuff that the world will see in some extras at some point.
Yeah, some directors I've spoken with love to release deleted scenes, and others are like, you will never see them.
Yeah, I would release some. I think it's a tutorial, and so, that was my film school, was watching DVD extras, and as is so many people's, and directors' commentaries and things like that. That's I always enjoy why was stuff removed, and as long as the actors agree to let it be released, I think could be a good lesson.
One of the things that made me laugh was seeing your real director of photography playing the director of photography in the fake moon landing, if you will. Talk a little bit about, was it tough to get Darius to agree? Because he's very good in it.
Yeah, well, it was fun. I'm glad you noticed that. Darius is like, I think if you asked a lot of DPs who their favorite DP was, they would say Darius. He's so respected, and he's so talented, and was such a professor for me throughout. And there were so many moments that we were talking about how we were going to pull off faking with 1969 technology, the moon landing part, and in hearing him discuss it while I was during the day watching readings of other people pretending to be a director of photography, my impulse was at some point, Darius, you should just do this. And he thought I was kidding. Everyone thought I was kidding. And then we did a camera test. And at the end of the camera test, I turned the camera on him and I asked him just to say a line. And he said it, and I sent it in to Apple. And they were like, all right, if you want to cast him, go for it. And so he didn't realize, I think, the amount of work that was going into acting until he realized how much he was actually in the movie while we were shooting, and he was trying to set up a light or set something up. And I would say, no, you have to go over there now and be in the scene. But by the end, he delighted in it.
That's very funny, and I'm very happy that you did that. One of the things about you is you've produced so many things.
Yeah.
If you had the opportunity to go back and shoot one more season of something that you've produced, what would the show be and why?
That's a great question, and no one's ever asked me that before. I think my impulse is just to say Everwood, just because it was my first show I created, and I love all the casts I've done, but that was such a special cast and such a special family, and it's very nostalgic for me now in the loss of some of the people that I did that show with to even think about emotionally, to be honest. So I would probably do it just to spend time with them again, to be honest.
I'm so curious about, you guys are going to do a live action Scooby-Doo show
We are.
at Netflix.
Yes.
That's what I'm hearing. So what is it about that says I want to do it, and what can you tease for fans?
Gosh, I hadn't discussed how much we're allowed to sort of say or not say. We searched for a year and a half for people with a take, and the right kind of take that I think celebrated the show. I will tell you this: when I started out in the business, one of my first jobs was holding the animation cells for Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera while they signed them. And I would sit with them each for a day while they would, and Joe Barbera was such a larger than life character, and he would tell all the stories about the development of these shows and where it came from. And he talked obviously a lot about Scooby, and how it was in I think it was 68, 69 when it happened, and it was the end of the 60s, and kids felt the sense of tumult and out of control, and that this show gave them back a sense of power and empowerment of like, adults don't always know what they're doing, but young people, are more pure of heart and do. And he told me about the origin of like throwing a talking dog. And so I have very fond memories of that moment at the beginning of my career. And I have a special affinity for those projects, but it's a beginning. So I think like with the DC stuff that you were a part of and so much when we were working on it was my goal with those things is to always, when we are lucky enough to take a character off the shelf, to return it more valuable than we took it off. And so if we can't anywhere along the way, we stop. But I think that there's a real opportunity to reintroduce those characters in a live action way to a new generation.